Very recently, I went ahead and watched a movie in theaters called Argyle. Now, this was a movie that I didn't really expect much out of. I would see the trailers for the film from time to time, seeing other movies, and I didn't really give the film much thought. I wasn't super excited for it. I didn't think, oh wow, this looks terrible, I'm not gonna watch it. I didn't think anything like that at all. Eventually, when the film came out, I decided, you know what, I might as well go see it, you know? This is just one of those, it, I might as well go and watch it. It's not like I have anything better to do kind of movies. Just go out, watch it, and just maybe have a good time watching it. I went into this movie thinking it was just gonna be a dumb, entertaining spy comedy movie. Something, it's something to just shut your brain off to. I expected something kind of similar to like Bullet Train, which was a movie that I didn't really expect much out of, and yet I left the theater pleasantly surprised by how fun the film was. I expected something similar to that from Argyle, just a dumb, fun, entertaining movie. Nothing incredible, nothing that's gonna like win any Oscars, but just something that it passes time. What I end up getting is a bloated, confusing as hell nightmare that will be almost impossible for me to talk about. This is not going to be an easy movie for me to review because the plot for this thing is just, it's all over the place, and not in a good way either. This is the first movie I've watched of 2024, and already I have a strong feeling that this will end up being the worst film I've watched of 2024. At the very least, it's going to be in the top 5. I cannot think of any other movie coming out this year that I'll watch that'll be like as bad as this movie. Again, I didn't even have like high expectations or anything like that for this movie, but man, I thought it was gonna be just a dumb and entertaining movie, and it just ends up being just a cluster film that's just impossible to understand what's going on in it. This movie also shares the honor of being one of the worst theater experiences I've ever had. Around the latter half of the movie, I was just like, yeah, I have no idea what the is going on, and then I spent most of that time just on my phone because I couldn't even comprehend what was going on. And the 2 hour and 19-minute runtime that this movie has does not help with this at all. It does not. I went from not having much expectations for this movie to like making a video on this movie because I thought it was just that bad. I had to keep deciding with myself, should I make a video on this movie or not, because like the plot for this thing is so confusing and it's so hard to talk about like what happens in this movie that I have to question if it's really worth it, but I'm going in for it. I don't care. And there is not a chance in hell that I'm ever sitting down and watching this movie again a second time. I am for sure not spending money on a second ticket for this movie, nor am I even gonna sail the 7 seas for a rewatching of the movie. No thanks, I'm good. So with all of that said, allow me to try my best to describe the plot of this movie, because believe me, it's going to be confusing as trust me. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. With all of that said, let us dive in. Now, before I go into why this movie is bad, I'm gonna give out a couple positives for the movie, because there are redeeming qualities to this movie. I do think this could have been a good movie. It just wasn't executed properly. The cast I thought was pretty good. I thought the actors for the film did good. I particularly liked Bryan Cranston, who was like the villain of the movie, one of the villains. I thought that he basically carried the entire movie. To be honest, I feel like there's a small part of me that only wanted to watch this movie because Bryan Cranston was in it, and that's it. But he was easily the best part of the movie. Like, he stole the show in every scene that he was in. That's my goat right there. But a lot of the cast was really good as well. As I stated before, I went into this movie expecting it to just be dumb, entertaining fun, and on some occasions it kind of is dumb, entertaining fun. Like, a few of the action scenes I thought were pretty decent. There's a scene early on in the movie that's like a brawl inside of a train, and I thought that was pretty decent. Maybe it's not as stupidly enjoyable as I would like it to be, but I'd say it's fair enough for what it is. I really wish there was more stuff like this in the movie, because a large amount of the movie is just plagued by just how confusing the storyline of the film is. There are other problems with the film, but the storyline is like the main issue that I have. So the film doesn't really start off that badly at first. It's mostly just a very average, mediocre movie. It's not terrible at all. It's watchable, but it's nothing special either. It's not a very funny movie for its first half, which is bad because, well, this is supposed to be a spy comedy, so you would think there'd be funny jokes, but there aren't. I'll go into more detail about that much later on. But for the first half of the movie, it's perfectly average. It's not great, but it's watchable. It's okay for what it is. It's midway into the movie though that's when it becomes like a cluster of a film to just sit through, and you have like no idea what's going on in it. What starts off as a 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10 movie, it becomes like a 2 out of 10 movie halfway into it. So the movie follows Ellie Conway, an author that has a really popular spy book series named Argyle, as the name suggests. While trying to think of ideas for the final book in the Argyle series, Ellie suffers from writer's block, and as a result of this, she decides to visit her mother in England to see if she could help. She gets onto a train and she meets up with this guy who ends up being a spy, a real spy. It turns out that everything that happens in the Argyle book series actually happened in real life in the universe, and like Ellie didn't know about it at all. And there's also this organization led by Bryan Cranston's character who's trying to find Ellie and stop her because reasons. There's a bunch of people that try and stop Ellie on the train, but the spy manages to stop all the guys. There's like a brawl in the train that ensues. As I said before, it's one of the only entertaining parts of the entire movie. Maybe it's not as fun as I would want it to be. It's not as stupidly entertaining as I would want it to be, but it does the part well. It's fine for what it is. So the two of them end up in London. They go inside of like an old abandoned house to get something. I don't remember what it is. And then the building becomes infiltrated by the people in the organization. During this part, I just kind of like zoned out of the movie because I didn't think it was funny. I didn't know then that the movie would become so much worse, but I wasn't having a good time watching the movie during this point. I didn't think the movie was funny or that entertaining, aside from the train sequence. So then after they find the thing in the abandoned building, they decide to stay at like a house or whatnot. It's not Ellie's house, I'm not sure where it is. But Ellie overhears the spy talking about how he plans to get rid of her, and this is when we get like the first plot twist of the movie. And now this is when I'm able to talk about the biggest problem with this movie. There are too many plot twists in this movie, and it is impossible to understand what's going on in the movie. The movie just goes back and forth when it comes to certain decisions. It's like they make plot twists out of plot twists, which I've never seen anything like that happen before in any movie ever. Ellie decides to run away from the spy and meets up with her mother. She also meets up with her father, who in another plot twist turns out to be Bryan Cranston's character, who's like the main villain. Now this would be the part where I would make a joke about like Skylar White and Holly White and where Walter Jr. is, but I don't think this movie deserves that kind of joke, so I'm not gonna do that. And it turns out the mom is evil as well, so there you go, that's plot twist number 3. Anyways, the spy confronts Ellie and her family, and he shoots her mom. And then later on into the film, it turns out, nope, she didn't die at all. She was still alive. She was wearing a bulletproof vest. She was conveniently wearing a bulletproof vest when she got shot. So there you go, she was still alive then. She faked her death, so that's plot twist number 4. I'm pretty sure there are points in the movie where they try and paint Bryan Cranston's character and the mom as being like good guys instead of bad guys, but I have no idea. Listen, this is a 2 hour and 19-minute long movie with like one of the most confusing, hard to understand plots I've seen for any movie. There is not a chance in hell that I am ever watching this movie a second time. If I get any details wrong in this review, guess what? I don't care. I ain't watching this movie again. No siree. It is during this part of the movie where the plot just becomes like I'm so confused as to what's going on. It's like, what the am I watching? Seriously. Later into the movie, there's a scene where Ellie and the spy go to France and they meet a character that's played by Samuel L. Jackson, who he's barely in the movie, but he's good in it for what little screen time he has. Again, the cast for this movie is really good, which is why it's a shame that, like, they have such a good cast in this movie. Like, they got Henry Cavill in the movie to play the titular Argyle. Like, there's some scenes in the movie where Ellie hallucinates the spy that she's with. I don't remember his name, nor do I intend to look it up. I'm sorry, I don't care. This movie sucks. And she, like, hallucinates the spy that she's with being Argyle, Henry Cavill's character. It's kind of crazy how it's like the trailers kind of made it out to be like a big thing. Like, you think he's gonna be a big thing. Same thing with like Dua Lipa as well. Like, they feature these two in the trailers. They feature them in like the promotional stuff. And then it's like they're barely in the movie. Like, Dua Lipa is like only in like the first 10 minutes of the movie. And then like her character dies. It's a cameo basically. So then a bunch of like random stuff happens, I have no idea, and then we get like the biggest plot twist in the movie, like the most important main one. And keep in mind, this is like what, the 5th one in total that I'm bringing up. It turns out that Ellie's entire life never happened. She used to be like part of this organization. I don't know if it's the same organization that like Bryan Cranston's character has or something. I don't know. But she was part of an organization. Maybe it was like a rival organization. I don't know. And it turns out like she got into an accident that like left her in a coma. And, like, she lost her memory as well. And so Bryan Cranston's character and the mother, they come in, they pretend to be her parents. So there's another plot twist there. These aren't her real parents. And they basically make up stuff about, like, who she is. They make up a whole new life for her. I could get this wrong. If I do get it wrong, then just know that I don't care, as I said before. But I think that, like, everything that Ellie wrote in the Argyle books series was, like, part of like her life before she got into a coma and like lost her memory. So like everything that happens in her books, like it's based on a true story. And so you have like Bryan Cranston's character and this woman, they just like, they pretend to be like her parents. They make up a lie that like she got into a figure skating accident and that's what caused her in like to be in a hospital. And like she finds out her real identity. She finds out who she really is. I can kind of see where the movie's going for, but like it's so many like millions and millions of unnecessary plot twists that just kind of ruin it. Like, I don't know why they decide to include these plot twists where it's like the spy that she's with, Sam Rockwell's character. I might as well start referring to these characters by the actors that play them. Like, there's like 2 separate moments in the movie where they try and pull off a plot twist where it's like, oh no, he's actually evil. And then like by the end of the movie, he's a good guy still. For most of the beginning of the movie, Sam Rockwell's character, the spy, he's a good guy. And then, like, there's one scene where it's like Ellie overhears Sam talking about how he plans to get rid of Ellie. And, like, I don't know if that was ever resolved. Again, I wasn't paying attention, I'll admit. So, you know, there's that. Maybe there is a actual explanation. I don't know. whatever the case may be, it ends up being, oh no, Sam Rockwell's character is a good guy again. And then much later on to the movie, they try and pull off another plot twist, the same plot twist again, where it's like, oh no, actually Sam Rockwell's character is evil, he betrays Ellie. And it's like, you can't do that. You cannot repeat a plot twist a second time, especially since the first time it happened, the plot twist was already like, it's like the movie doesn't know what the it wants to do. It cannot make up its mind at all. It is so confusing to understand. It's like one moment a character is like a good guy, and the next it's like, nope, they're actually evil, they're a villain. And then the next it's like, oh no, actually I changed my mind, they're a good guy again. I changed my mind, they're a protagonist again. And then the next it's like, never mind, they're evil still, and they're gonna die as well. And then it's like, nope, we're resurrecting them. And then it's like, nope, the character's gonna die again. And then it's like, nope, the character's alive again. It's so confusing. There's a scene where Sam Rockwell's character dies, but like it turns out he survives as well. He gets shot in the heart, and like in the movie, there's a thing in it where it's like a fan submits a suggestion to Ellie for a future book where there's a character that dies in the Argyle book. This fan emails Ellie with a suggestion on how to have this character not die, have like there be a plot twist where this character might initially seem dead, but she's actually alive. It's this thing where it's like, she gets shot in the heart, the character in the book, but it turns out like there's a very small gap within like around where the heart is, where like the bullet doesn't go into the heart, it doesn't penetrate the heart, and so like it allows you to still be alive, it allows you to stay alive. And like this exact thing is included into Sam Rockwell's character. And I guess that's not really like a bad callback. I guess that's pretty decent, but it's not really saying much when the movie is super hard to understand and confusing because of its millions and millions of plot twists. Like, it just won't make up its mind at all. The last, like, third of the movie is like, I can't even understand what's going on. It's just like things happen for the sake of simply happening and nothing else. The movie ends with just good guy beats bad guy. Ellie and Sam Rockwell's character stop Bryan Cranston's character and the mother who actually isn't Ellie's mother, and like everyone lives happily ever after. Ellie finishes the final book in her Argyle series, taking inspiration from everything that happened to her. Everyone lives happily ever after. The end. This movie sucks. And then to like kind of add insult to injury, in the mid-credits scene, this movie tries to connect itself with another movie made by the director of the film, Matthew Vaughn, the Kingsman movies, which I'm gonna say I have never seen these movies, so I don't know if they're good or bad. I've heard the first movie is good, but like I'm not sure about the other two. At least I've heard that like the first one's good, so you know there's that. I don't doubt the possibility that these are good. I'm sure these are like way better than Argyle. I don't doubt that. But basically in the mid-credits scene, they try and connect this as being part of the Kingsman film series. Like they share the same universe. I think they also tease like a sequel as well, Argyle Book 1 or something like that, which I'm guessing is just going to be like, they're going to just take the book and like they're going to make an in-universe movie adaptation of the book, which, I mean, if you know, as long as it's not millions and millions of plot twists like in this, then I guess that's fine, you know? I highly doubt that this will be anything more than just a failed attempt to start like a new franchise. This is just going to go down as just a one-time movie and that's it. This movie has been getting a lot of poor reviews from critics. It has like a 35% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's like the same sort of criticisms that I've been giving it, where it's like it's not really funny and it's full of like plot twists and stuff. It's like it makes the storyline really confusing and hard to understand. The movie's also been flopping hard at the box office. Allegedly, this movie had a budget of $200 million, and so far it's only made like around, I think, 35 million for its box office, which is really bad. This movie would need to have $500 million at the box office in order to break even. That's $500 million. And considering the critical reception for this movie, that's not going to happen. there is not going to be a sequel to this movie, that's for sure. Going into more detail about the humor, because I do frequently bring up that the humor for the movie isn't funny. You know, it's kind of the weird thing where it's like the first half of the movie and the second half feel like two different movies. The biggest problem with the first half of the movie is that it's not funny at all, and then the biggest problem with the second half is that like I don't even know what the hell is going on 99% of the time. The first half just has really unfunny humor in it. You know, I made a video recently talking about like the decline of comedies and why you just don't see comedies coming out anymore. And I cannot believe I never brought this up in that video. This is like something that's like a big problem with like humor nowadays, and somehow I didn't bring it up at all. Somehow I didn't take into consideration the possibility that this could play a part in why comedies aren't popular anymore. Meta humor. You know, you think about like the MCU, you think about like, you know, the well, that just happened sort of jokes, you know, you think about that. You think about that game that came out last year, Forspoken, and like the really cringy dialogue that it had. You think about like that Justin Roiland gun game, you know, just that really unfunny style of humor. Yeah, this movie has quite a bit of that in it, mainly in the first half. Like there's a lot of like cliche spy stuff in this movie, and it's just kind of followed up with this sort of dialogue, this sort of like meta self-aware dialogue where it's like Ellie is like aware of what's going on, like she's aware of the ridiculous nature of what situation she's in, and like you just have this sort of like Marvel-esque humor in it, and it's not funny at all. Maybe it's not to the same extent as like some of the other things that I've brought up, but like still the meta self-aware humor is in this movie, and it's not like easy to ignore it. It's pretty hard to ignore it, and like not once is it ever funny. I don't know how I didn't bring that up in my original video on like the decline of comedies, but I realize now that could be a big reason why comedy stopped being relevant, you know? Movies aren't allowed to be just stupid anymore. Every movie now has to be like self-aware and ironic and meta. Like, yeah, we're self-aware that we're stupid. We're gonna make fun of ourselves for being stupid. That's funny, guys, right? You know, like a movie like The Mask could never be made today. The Mask is a stupid movie, okay? It's goofy, it's wacky, it's silly, it's cartoony, and yet it doesn't care about that at all. There's no like meta self-aware jokes or anything like that in The Mask. It doesn't make fun of its silly, goofy nature. It embraces its silly, goofy nature. That's why it works. That's why it's considered a classic. Could you imagine if The Mask came out today and it would just be filled to the brim with these kinds of jokes where it's like Jim Carrey's just like, did I just do that? Did I just make that wacky, over-exaggerated face? There's no way I just did that. That didn't just happen. Like, there would just be that sort of unfunny humor in The Mask if it came out today. You know what? I'm gonna go a step further. I know people in the comments are gonna be like, whoa, hey there, buddy, I think you might be going a little too far with this, but you know what? I don't care. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. F***ing Son of the Mask is like the same thing as well. And now, this is not me defending Son of the Mask. Son of the Mask is a terrible movie, don't get me wrong, but it's at least like it's authentic in its stupidity. It's sincere in it. It has the same like silly, wacky nature as the first Mask, and again, it doesn't have any shame in it at all. It's not self-aware or anything like that. That doesn't mean that the movie is good. That doesn't mean that Son of the Mask is good. God, no. But like, at least I can respect it for embracing its stupid, unhinged nature. You know, I think about like a movie like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure could never be made today. If it came out today, it would suck. It would be unfunny garbage. Like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure has a ridiculous, stupid premise. Two high school idiots use a time-traveling phone booth to pick up various historical figures and bring them to the present day for a school assignment. It's ridiculous. It is one of the most idiotic premises for a movie ever. And it doesn't take itself seriously. It embraces that fact. It doesn't make fun of its ridiculous nature, and that's why it's regarded as a classic. I can only imagine the millions and millions of, well, that just happened jokes that would be in Bill and Ted if it came out today. You know, I realize now as well, like, this is kind of the reason why, like, Barbie was successful. In the previous video that I made, I talked about how, like, Barbie was, like, an exception movie. It was, like, this fluke film, the only successful comedy to come out in recent times. And there were several possible reasons as to why, like, Barbie was a fluke. There were several reasons for why it ended up being the only exception to, like, comedies being irrelevant now. And I realized, like, one of those reasons could be because it's stupid. But it embraces its stupidity. It doesn't make fun of itself for that. Like, you look at, like, a lot of the imagery in the movie. You look at, like, Barbie Land. Everything is, like, bright, colorful, pink, you know. It looks stupid. It's goofy, but it doesn't make fun of it or anything like that. There's no, like, satire meta jokes. There are meta jokes in the movie, but they're not just, oh, we're gonna make fun of the stupid, ridiculous nature of the movie. You know, it's nothing like that at all. Maybe that kind of humor is present in Barbie, but it's, like, extremely rare in comparison. You look at, like, I'm Just Ken, and that's, like, it's a joke song, but it takes itself seriously. It takes its stupidity seriously. And that's what makes it work. It's so unapologetically stupid, and that's what makes it good. And I think that's the reason why Barbie was, like, a fluke. That's, like, a reason. Not the main reason, but a reason for Barbie being the only successful comedy to come out in recent times. Like, I'm gonna just say this right now. I miss Adam Sandler movies. I miss, you know, all those, like, Happy Madison movies from, like, the 2000s and early 2010s, you know? I miss those days when it's, like, seemingly every other week there would be a new Adam Sandler comedy in theaters, you know? I miss that time. I miss movies like Pixels. I miss movies like Paul Blart Mall Cop. I miss The Benchwarmers. I miss Grown Ups, you know? I understand that these aren't great movies. I understand that, like, these are essentially junk food movies, is, like, the perfect way to describe them. But I still kind of have a soft spot for these movies, despite that. Or maybe because of that. Like, you could say a lot of things about Paul Blart Mall Cop. It feels more sincere than most, like, modern movies with, like, comedy and whatnot. It feels more sincere than, like, Thor Love and Thunder or Ant-Man 3 in terms of its humor. It has more heart and charm in it. It has more soul in it than, like, most modern comedies. It knows that it's a stupid movie. And what does it decide to do? It embraces that fact. It doesn't make fun of itself for being stupid. It embraces the fact that it's stupid. Can we get more movies like that again, please? What an interesting coincidence it is that, like, I make a video talking about the downfall of comedies and, like, why comedies aren't relevant anymore. And then, like, a few days later, I would go on to watch a movie that just kind of reaffirms why comedies are no longer popular anymore. This is the first movie I've watched of 2024. It might very well be the worst film. I don't think there's anything coming out this year that'll be, like, worse than this. Whatever will come out, at least, like, I can understand what will happen in it. This movie is just a hard to understand cluster of a movie. I really wanted this to be, like, an enjoyable movie, as in, like, a dumb, stupid, fun movie. It's not even that. When Argyle isn't confusing the hell out of us with its millions and millions of unnecessary plot twists, it's just reminding us again of why, like, MCU humor, modern MCU humor, is like a plague on comedies. All of a sudden, Jack and Jill and Grown Ups 2 don't seem so bad now, do they? I originally had no plans to make a video on this movie, but after I finished watching it in theaters, I thought it was so bad that it's like I knew I had to make a video on it. So yeah, here we are. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Adios.